Good afternoon. I hope you all got some coffee and have lots of energy to talk about this important topic of AI-driven analytics, robust data management, cybersecurity as essential pillars of modern energy systems. I'm Jamila Amodeo, Senior Energy Specialist with the Asian Development Bank, specializing on smart energy systems. It is my pleasure to see big interest in this session. And I have to say, this morning, when I opened Hoover app, I had a medal next to the session saying, this is the highest attending session. So I'm expecting more people to come into this room as we speak. I wanted to say that I think a lot of interesting discussion took place just before this session. And our power systems are becoming more interconnected, data-driven, and at the same time, there are a lot of challenges that are coming at us, including lack of data, data fragmentation, challenges of cybersecurity, the need for robust governance framework, and most importantly, I think people are behind the successes of addressing these challenges, and we need to figure out how collectively we can collaborate for the safe adoption of AI. That's why today's session brings together a distinguished group of speakers from leading industry players, research institutions, and technology providers to share their perspectives and solutions. With that, I would like to introduce our speakers, our panelists. I'll start with Naidu Ot. Would you mind standing up? Senior Principal Specialist with Hitachi Energy, a scientist. He has 18 years of experience in power system protection, fault location monitoring, and grid management. He's passionate about translating innovative ideas into leapfrog digital solutions for a flexible, smarter, and greener power grid, enabling sustainable and affordable electricity for all. Next panelist is Lam Fan, energy analyst at Amber, an independent energy think tank based in UK. Lam's work focuses on energy systems modeling and analysis to support the energy transition across Southeast Asia. He has collaborated with multiple international clients on renewable energy initiatives. My next panelist is Debbie Liu, who is Executive Director of the Energy Systems Integration Group. She has over 30 years of experience. It's combined over your 30 years of experience in the energy industry. Debbie is a recognized expert in power system studies, renewable integration, and grid modernization. She has worked with GE Energy Consulting, the National Renewable Energy Laboratories, and the Hawaiian Electric Company. As a fellow, also is a fellow of IEEE. She is also my track co-chair. Thank you for all your help. Next speaker is David Moran. He is leading the digital business for Arup's Asia Pacific region. David is a digital transformation leader with over 25 years of experience across transportation, energy, government, telecommunications. He specializes in unlocking value through data and technology. He has successfully built and led high-performing technology teams worldwide. And the last but not least is Ken Gao, Principal Industrial Consultant at Dragos. It's a US firm with over 25 years of combined IT infrastructure and operational technology, OT cybersecurity experience. Ken served as OT technical authority at Shell and is a specialist in security architecture, SCADA, and safety instrumented systems. Together, our speakers will help us explore not only the technologies themselves, but also the systems thinking, institutional frameworks, and partnerships required to translate innovation into real-world impact, especially for utilities in developing member countries. To frame today's discussion, it is my pleasure to invite Sujata Gupta, Director of the South Asia Energy Division at ADB. Sujata is a recognized leader in energy policy and sustainable development, with a distinguished track record in advancing universal energy access, enhancing energy security, and driving low-carbon solutions across South Asia. Sujata's experience spans from project development, regional cooperation, innovative approaches to modern energy systems, and her leadership has fostered impactful partnerships between governments, industry, and development organizations, making her uniquely positioned to frame today's session on AI, data, and cybersecurity in the energy sector. Welcome, Sujata.
Thank you, and a very good afternoon to everybody. As my introduction would have shown, I'm the only non-tech, non-AI person on to speak today. But welcome to track 4.2. And I think the title says it all, right? AI-driven analytics, robust data management, and cybersecurity. It says as essential pillars of modern energy system. I say as the essential pillars of modern energy systems. So let me start with a couple of questions. Please raise your hand if you hear about AI at least once a day. Okay, 100%. And I'll ask one more. Now, you have to say in one word, what comes to your mind when you hear about AI in energy? Is it an opportunity or is it a risk? Those for opportunity, raise your hands. Okay, 85%. That's my mental AI doing a quick assessment of the hands raised. But every day, we are bombarded with headlines about artificial intelligence. Now, some highlight the risk. We hear about legal disputes between major players suing each other, emerging cyber vulnerabilities, rising electricity demand from data centers, causing increase in prices, and of course, most importantly, concern about the impact on jobs. But at the same time, we are hearing other headlines which tell a very different story. They highlight AI's potential, saying that it will be unlocking innovation, improving productivity, and creating entirely new opportunities across sectors. So we are hearing both sides. But what's very clear is it's no longer a theoretical concept. AI is actively transforming economies and driving system-wide change. So for the energy sector, the real question is not whether AI will shape the future, but how can we maximize its benefits while managing its risk, particularly in the energy sector where reliability, affordability, and economic stability are critical. So at ADB, our energy mission remains very clear: accelerating universal energy access, enhancing energy security and resilience, facilitating the low carbon transition, and ensuring environmental sustainability. Now, if we look at power systems, they're undergoing a profound transformation from centralized and relatively predictable systems. We are going towards decentralized, dynamic, and highly digitalized grids, which are being driven by distributed energy resources, electrification, and variable renewables. As ADB's President Kanda recently announced, ADB will deploy 70 billion by 2035 to expand the energy and digital infrastructure across Asia and the Pacific. And 50% of this would come from ADB's own balance sheet. And this is to strengthen grid connectivity, boost cross-border electricity trade, and enhancing digital access. I don't think we can have cross-border electricity trade without enhancing digital access. And within this transformation, AI will be a critical enabler, already being deployed across the energy value chain. So if you see in generation, we are improving forecasting and enabling greater renewable energy integration. In transmission and distribution, enabling predictive maintenance and real-time fault detection. In energy markets, optimizing dispatch and trading decisions. And at the edge of the grid, we are supporting EV charging, heating and cooling of buildings, and storage to reduce peak demand. So the opportunity is significant. So for example, AI-driven energy efficiency could generate over 1 trillion in economic value by 2030 while contributing to emission reductions. This is a figure by the World Economic Forum. But there is also a paradox we must confront. As systems become more interconnected and data-driven, they also become more complex and potentially more vulnerable. So the key challenges are fragmented data ecosystems, limiting coordination, and reducing the effectiveness of AI solutions, cybersecurity and governance gaps, which must be addressed alongside innovation, not later, in parallel. So the critical questions for all of us is how do we enable trusted data sharing and coordination across complex energy systems? How do we combine or incorporate AI-driven intelligence in our traditional power system models? And how do we ensure cybersecurity and governance evolve at the same pace as technological innovation? And perhaps, most importantly, what mindset do we have in the world where technological capability is advancing faster than our ability to govern it? So the future of energy and AI cannot be looked at in isolation, and therefore it requires collaboration across policymakers, utilities, industry leaders, and innovators to ensure that AI delivers not just efficiency and innovation, but also security, resilience, and sustainability, especially in Asia's developing member countries. So this is what is precisely we have brought together with this distinguished panel to explore not only the technologies, but also the systems thinking, institutional frameworks, and partnerships needed to translate innovation into real-world impact. So with this, it is my pleasure to invite back our moderator, Jamila, Senior Energy Specialist, to lead us, I think, what promises to be a very, very engaging discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujata. This is a great start for our session with the first presenter. I'm inviting Naidu Odd to present on the industry concepts of autonomous systems for energy transformation, highlighting how AI and automation are converging to build resilient, adaptive, and intelligent grids for a clean energy future. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you, Jamila, and good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Odi Naidu, Senior Principal Scientist from Hitachi Energy Research. Today, I would like to give an overview of autonomous systems for the energy transformation based on the core of automation and AI, how we can interlink it and get the benefit. So without wasting so much time. So today morning also we have seen, because every countries really want to go for the carbon emission reduction, energy independency, energy security and efficiency. But if you can see the right side picture, almost like, 64 countries that accounting 89% of the emissions are even promised their net zero targets. Like for example, in India, by 2070, they would like to be a net zero target. So as a result, so a lot of renewables are integrating into the grid. For example, in 2020, the total renewable in our energy integration is around 20%, but the prediction is that by 2050 it is 80%. It's good. So it is good for the the earth, but what are the challenges? So that's very, very important, because I'm talking into the system level aspects. For example, you see the bar charts carefully. So any point of time, the net instantaneous renewable generation capacity of the certain countries are even more than 100%. Even in India, certain states like Rajasthan, we reached already 140%. It's good. But if you can see the right side, by 2030, India is planning to add 300 gigawatt of solar and 150 gigawatt of wind. But the biggest challenge is that you can see the green graph, the morning and evening, the ramping up and ramping down rates. It's like 40 gigawatt per hour. So if you really want to exchange or interchange such an energy, is very, very typical task, unless otherwise you design at the beginning. So that's the reason the power system, the designing is changing, because in the principle, conventional systems are more focused toward the reliability and stability, but still those are essential. But we need to move towards the flexibility and resiliency. So how do you get the resiliency? So very simple wheel, if you can carefully, you can observe. So, supply side is a generation, demand. So in a conventional power system, I can predict my supplies. So once I predict the demand side, I can set my generators to follow the load. But today, it's very difficult because both are variable. Then how do I bring as a grid operator to the close to each other? So I need to build a activity and grid. What is meaning of the activity? And so it should be able to respond it quickly. Okay, this region is a surplus of power, but they're deficient. Quickly I can able to reverse it. But how much? Who will act it? So that's where we need to deploy HVDC interconnections, even regional connectors, and also the storage need to be smoothly integrated. So that's where I can say the power electrons is the enablers, which are more fast actuator. But who will tell that? So when to act, how much you have to contribute, and how fast you have to respond. That's where the core, digital, our theme. The digital is the key, and carefully if you can really see that. So this digital automation and AI analytics really, really help in this transition. So quickly I can see that even as a scientist, so I always, very forward thinking. But again, we put a lot of questions for ourselves. Is AI is trusted? Because the energy is very critical, and if you wrong decisions may lead to the, blackouts. For example, you see the power system protection. I am a protection scientist. I need to clear the fault within 20 milliseconds. So is my system or AI can help it or not? So that's where I put a lot of questions and I segregated things into the different formats. So what we can accept today, what we can do it faster in later. For example, you can see the bottom. So forecasting, already Sujata mentioned about that, even predictive maintenance, vegetation management. So these are the low-hanging fruits so that we can use that to demonstrate the capability of the AI so that, again, we can make the more and more regulatory frameworks and do the network management, control and protection operations in the latter. So in this perspective, we already built several applications, but today I would like to show a top 3 applications where we already deployed in multiple utilities and we are seeing a good benefit out of this. The first one is that energy forecasting. As you can see here, So we called it, this is a Nostradamus energy forecasting solution. So this is really, you can see, using the domain expertise and also the data scientists together with the streamlined data. So we are able to predict the wind, solar, and load, and even including energy price forecasting. So this will really helpful and operated to give a freedom to think even bigger, because these things are automatically, that if you know what is the generation, what is my load, I have a good fast actuators like a power electronics, so that I can quickly change it. For example, conventional power plant, I want to change my 10 gigawatt, at least 1 megawatt, I want to increase it. It will take some minutes, because those time constants are bigger, like governing control and all, because if you can talk about the electrical engineering point of view. But these power electrons can change things in just 2 to 3 milliseconds, because the time constants are low. But the only thing is that good intelligence is required. So another interesting application is that, vegetation management. So today we are, the biggest problem and a lot of cost is putting into the, especially in the Asia Pacific, toward the vegetation management, because we don't know where the trees touching, where the things are happening. So to mitigate that, we are taking the satellite images and video analytics together to combine the operational research. So it will really tell you, the grid operators, okay, these are the first 1, 2, 3 priorities you can maintain it, so that we can optimize the, you can optimize the maintenance costs. Another important application is asset performance management or even predictive maintenance. For example, you taken a lot of assets are there, pretty old, even utilities we see, the transformers are almost more than 60, 50 years old. Then when it will fail, we don't know, because that's where the reliability and resilience comes into picture. So to combine, and also a lot of workforce is retiring. So how do we preserve our knowledge? So that's where we build this tool. We are taking the reports, data sheets, etc., with the online data. We are combining the physics-based models, because this is where we are creating the trust. We are embedding in the physical relation, the physics-based relationships, like, how KVL, KCL, we are embedded into the AI, so that it will be independent on the training perspective. So finally, what I want to say that the physical interactions, so in a grid management, this is a bigger complex problem, because I don't want to jump into the bigger things. This is where the end goal of the AI. So how do you see, how do we make the protection and control for the smoother operations? Today in an advisory mode, because AI supports the human will act it. So, okay, it will suggest do this. So I will do this. Okay, there is a deficit in generation, increase the load. So then I can give a trip command. Then tomorrow, or even now, not tomorrow, today, agentic approach comes. Means even what kind of action I need to take, AI will suggest, but I will approve it. Like as a home operator, we will approve it, and it will. And going forward, we can go for the more and more autonomous systems where AI acts, but still human in supervision. It's not that we cannot eliminate the human, because this is a very critical infrastructure, and it may lead to the bigger blackout. So as AI maturity increases, the human role shifts from decision maker to approver to the supervisor for in a closed loop physical systems. So my simple, I would say 3 words takeaway is that think big, bigger visionary, and start with small and scale it faster, because that's where we can really unlock the potential of the AI. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Naidu. Really good name, Nostradamus AI. We all loved it, so on this row. Thank you for describing different types of AI that's and progression. It's the way it's coming into the energy sector, and this is a good foundation for starting our next presentation by Lam Pham, who will share insights on how AI can unlock the next wave of renewable integration in ASEAN. So please welcome Lam Pham.
Good afternoon, delegates and fellow participants. First of all, I would like to thank ASEAN Development Bank and the organizer for the opportunity to present my report, which title AI to Unlock the Next Way of Renewable Energy Integration in ASEAN. My name is Lam Phap. I'm an energy analyst at Ember. About my organization, we are an independent energy think tank headquartered in the UK. We aim to accelerate the clean energy transitions with data and policy. Our mission is to shift the world to a clean and electrify energy futures. Our data is open and free, and you can easily download it on our website. About my presentations, I like to open it up with this chart showing the share of variable renewable energy in total generation in ASEAN. It remains pretty low today at around 5%, but is projected to grow rapidly by 2045 to up to 60%. And to achieve this target, we have to overcome the challenges associated with VRE integrations. And AI can play an important role to accelerate the energy transition by basically enabling higher renewable, variable renewable energies in power sectors. So how AI does this? So there are four main challenges associated with solar and wind integrations, which are generations uncertainty, output variability, location specificity, and low availability. AI is a powerful tool to address these challenges. For example, AI can improve VRE generation forecast, facilitate optimal dispatch and system stability and security control. It can also support the operation of dynamic light rating as well as to enable predictive maintenance. One of the most critical issue we face nowadays for VRE integration is that grid development cannot keep pace with our renewable capacity expansion. New renewable generations typically require some grid upgrades or augmentations. And AI dynamic light rating is a powerful tool by monitoring real-time data to allow transmission line to safely carry additional capacity above maximum rating, which help defer or avoid building new line. And this might be a high impact technology given ASEAN rainy season and strong wind resources. Another application of AI for power sector is that it enable predictive maintenance. As you know, solar plant and wind turbines are constantly exposed to adverse weather conditions, which lead to unplanned component failures and consequently reduce their availability to supply demand. Conventional maintenance follow a fixed schedule, so only trigger repair when broken and only replace on a fixed schedule. AI model can detect early degradation sign, allowing utility to plan maintenance more proactively. Which avoid catastrophic failures and forced outages. This increase reliability and availabilities of renewable generations. And ASEAN is ready to harness the potential application of AI, substantial development of digitalization and data centers position ASEAN pretty high in Government AI Readiness Index. In fact, several power utilities in ASEAN has initiated AI project and has gained quite positive result. The scale of AI benefit, looking at the whole global energy sector, is enormous. It's estimated that AI can save up to 4 times the power that data center consumed by 2030, while generating massive cost saving and emission reductions. And in our report, we quantify the potential cost saving and emission reduction from AI from AI adoption in power system in ASEAN. We estimated that ASEAN could save over $67 billion and cut nearly 400 million tons of CO2 by 2035. And we also find that AI become more valuable as renewable penetration rises in ASEAN. In the scenario with higher VRE share in total generations, the cost saving amount from AI adoption also you bigger number. And this is because AI adoptions and VRE integrations are strongly complementary. High VRE integrations require advanced digitalization that AI can enable more effectively. At the same time, high VRE share create the operational and planning challenges that AI is best to address, therefore realizing greater benefit. AI could play a vital role in accelerating the energy transition, but there are challenges associated with deploying the technologies, which are data limitation, regulatory uncertainty and liability risk, cybersecurity, organizational and cultural barriers. Although risks exist, I think they are largely policy manageable. Some recommendations from our report includes mandating VRE forecasting, strengthen data and model governance, embed data protection and cybersecurity, build workforce, and finally phase rollout, close monitoring, and plan additional budget. Thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you, Lam. This was very interesting with all the research you've done with the specific numbers. There will be a lot of questions about your presentation, I'm sure. With that, I would like to invite my co-track chair, Debbie, to discuss about the data gaps, data coordination, analytics, and how AI can enable the smart grid of the future.
Thanks, Jamila. All right, I'm obviously a lot shorter than you. So thank you very much for having me. For those of you who don't know ESIG, the Energy Systems Integration Group that I work for, we're a member-driven educational nonprofit organization. We convene industry to address technical challenges to decarbonization and grid transformation. We've got over 300 global members. They convene in task forces and work on technical problems. I encourage you, if you've never heard of us, go to the QR code. All of our workshops, webinars, reports, it's all freely available on our website, on YouTube. Encourage you to sign up for our mailing list. So as we've been talking about in this track and in the last session to this session, days of traditional one-way static flows on the distribution system are over. We've got so much going on at the customer level today, right? Did that guy just buy an electric vehicle? Did this person, install rooftop solar? Does that one install those new plug-in solar panels? How do you forecast load when you don't know what people have? How do you engage a customer to sign up for a managed EV charging program if you don't know what they've got? We know that a dynamic distribution system can enhance both affordability and reliability. This graphic is showing, in the US, we're seeing increased electricity bills, and it's being driven by increased distribution spending, right? The increases in distribution spending are far outweighing what we see in spending on generation or spending on transmission. And when we build T&D infrastructure, we build it for peak conditions, right? Those conditions are rare. Most of the time, you've got excess capacity on that infrastructure. Now, if we can use the distribution system more fully, we can reduce upgrades, we can support affordability. But in order to do it, you gotta have data. You gotta have coordination, management of the data. You've gotta have analytics. So today, we've got key gaps in how we manage DERs. So I don't have a pointer here, but so you can kind of see the bottom gray areas. You can see these resources at the bottom of this providing data up to this kind of blue level through different communication paths. So most utilities have this advanced distribution management system. It's talking to their SCADA, their supervisory control and data acquisition system, so getting the data from the substations. You've got your AMI, your smart meters, advanced metering infrastructure. You've got behind the meter DERs that are talking to a DERMS, a DER management system. You've got front of the meter resources on the distribution system. They may be tying in through SCADA, they may be, in that DER space. And then now we've got these aggregators, these third-party aggregators who are talking to the ISO, the system operator, but may not be talking to the utility. So there's gaps between the DERs, the DERMS, the central operations part of the distribution utility, and there may not be collaboration with new actors like aggregators, and you've got gaps between the operations and planning side of the utility as well. So we generally see a need for increased coordination to allow a coordination orchestration layer, to allow the DERs to be exposed to the ISO markets without causing reliability challenges on the distribution systems. And we've got utilities who, they may be hesitant to go forward with these third-party aggregations because they don't know what it's going to do to their distribution system. Because now these DER aggregators are operating the DERs for totally different objectives than they've seen in the past. All right, so what does this look like to try to fill this gap? In this example, we've got on the left-hand side of here, we've got data from the customers, AMI, the smart meters. We've got data from the weather service, so that hourly, day ahead, all the weather parameters. You're using machine learning and AI algorithms to create customer-level forecasts across the distribution system. Now, we can pull distribution system network models from the utility. We can run those forecasts through these system models. And now you can look at distribution system constraints in the day ahead. You can see how aggregators are going to be bidding into the ISO, and you can see where the constraints are going to be over the next 24 hours. And then based on those constraints, you can create these operating envelopes, basically an export and import limit, like guardrails on what the DERs are doing, so that you don't run into reliability violations, right? You don't run into thermal or voltage violations. And then you can communicate those operating envelopes back to the utility into the DERMS, or back to the front of the meter resources, or to the aggregators. So in this example, and utilities are using machine learning with historical load data and weather forecasts to forecast customer demand. But the thing is, the forecasts are going to be much more accurate if the utility knows, do they have rooftop solar? Do they have an electric vehicle or a heat pump? So there's new techniques using smart meters and analytics out on the grid edge to disaggregate customer load into its components. One of our members, SMUD, is deploying these new smart meters, AMI 2.0. They have super fast measurements of customer load. It can detect signatures of electric vehicles or other DERs. And its computational ability is out on the grid edge. So it's making a huge amount of data, it's doing the computation, and then it's just sending back to the utility the knowledge it needs. Like, this guy's got a level 2 electric vehicle charger, this many kilowatts, and they charge during these times of the day. And our member utility says this is more accurate than the telematics that they get from the car manufacturers. It also allows them to identify what customers they should engage for managed charging programs. In this example, this is from Avangrid, another one of our members. They were the first to do a flexible interconnection for solar in the United States. You can see here, if there's a static hosting capacity limit, the PV output limits for this project would be 8 megawatts every hour of the year. The thing is, when the utility does their interconnection study, they don't factor load into that. So they assume the worst case scenario. If you have a flexible interconnection, you factor in the load, other network conditions, and then you can see the dynamic hosting capacity limit shown there in orange can be twice as high as the static limit, right? So you can here monitor your transformers in real time, feed the flexibility back to the DER, so they know their dynamic limit in real time. This allows you to put as much DER as you want on the system because you've got this feedback loop. And as long as this DER stays within their real-time operating envelope limits. I just wanted to mention this is not limited to the distribution system. It can work for large loads like data centers on the transmission system. You know, data centers can be built super fast compared to the transmission to serve them. And so utilities are investigating these flexible interconnections to allow data centers to interconnect more quickly. And there are ways you can do this. We actually have a workshop on this next week in Denver to talk about planning and operations of these flexible interconnections for data centers. And with that, I realize my time is up, so I just wanted to thank you all for your attention and hand it back over to Jamila.
What a great segue from data gaps and ability to double the potential capacity to transition to David Moran's presentation on data sharing infrastructure as is a socio-technical solution designed to enable intelligent interconnected energy systems. So welcome, David.
Thank you, Jamila. Thank you, Sujata. Thank you, other presenters. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is David Moran. I'm a principal at Arup. I'm based in Singapore, where I look after all external client-facing digital data and AI initiatives in Asia Pacific. And I'm here to talk to you about building an energy data sharing infrastructure. Arup is an engineering consulting firm, and we do a lot of planning and design in the built environment. Our strategic markets are energy, water, transport, and buildings. And whilst we're an HQ, we're HQ'd in the UK, we have offices across Asia Pacific, including here in Manila, right next door to the ADB building. So Judging by this morning's discussions, you would have thought there was only one topic in the energy industry in 2026, and that would be resilience. I'm pleased to say, and you all know this, that the energy industry is looking far beyond that. And 2 or 3 years ago, of course, a lot of what you're seeing on this screen today are well known. They're well understood. So it's not something that we have just discovered in 2026, that resilience is important, but there are other characteristics that are important. Transition remains important. Maybe a few years ago, we would have been talking a little bit more about net zero. I'm glad we're still talking about renewables. But on top of that, we've heard a lot about system complexity, and of course, we've heard a lot about data centers. So I'm going to talk a bit about how a data sharing infrastructure can help across all of those different challenges in an energy system. If I pick net zero as one example, achieving net zero requires an integrated energy system. We've heard about that multiple times already today, and we've heard about it in this session. Operating an integrated energy system requires a lot of modeling scenarios, and we saw that in the earlier presentation, looking at different scenarios for different years. All of that is driven by data informing our decision making. Using those scenarios requires visibility of the system, and visibility of system behavior requires data. And we've heard the more data you can add to that in terms of forecasting, in terms of the DERs, in terms of customer habits, all of that includes system visibility and behavior. And layered onto that, not just the technology. So if you layer on top of that the standards, you layer on top of that the contracts, you layer on top of that the people and all of the organizational processes, then you are on the way to a data sharing infrastructure. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the case study, the experience in the UK, where my team had formerly been working with, my former team, when I was in the UK, have been working with the UK government and the energy system operator in the UK for implementing their data sharing infrastructure. And data sharing in the UK has been a long conversation over many years, as it has been in all of the economies and all of the countries in Asia Pacific. So if you look at each of the years, then there's been a long conversation by both government, by regulators, by different non-governmental organizations, and in fact borrowing from other industries as well, including open banking. But if you look at data sharing infrastructure more specifically, in 2022, there was a vision created about what that would look like for the UK. That was then transitioned and evolved into the concept and roadmap for a digital spine, which went out to large consultation to the industry. And then that was converted into a policy mandate. And in fact, not only a system operator and a virtual energy system operator, but then the mandate for building a virtual energy system and a data sharing infrastructure. So having consulted widely through industry, these were the use cases that were relevant to the UK. Now, being in Asia Pacific, being based in Singapore, talking to a number of different energy authorities, there would be a different selection of use cases in every country in Asia Pacific. So I'm not here to say the UK is ahead or the UK is better. This is really just saying this is the UK's experience. This list probably dates it a little bit. If we were talking today, maybe energy security and energy resilience would make it much further up on top of the list. In some countries, you might see customer preferences, giving customers a better deal. But when you're in a country that has a monopoly energy provider, maybe that's not such a big concern. But ultimately, we came up with 15 potential high-level use cases and then picked one for the pilot. And that pilot was outage planning. But in terms of putting a pilot together, you all know the challenges of data. Okay, so talking about the concept of a data sharing infrastructure is one thing, and we talk about all of the challenges and all of the benefits. Actually trying it is quite hard. Okay, we've talked about in some of the other discussions talking about pilot projects, keeping it small. We talked about privacy. We've talked about contracts. All of these apply, and all of these need to be overcome. What I like about the conversation is the number of times that we use the word system. And we've heard one use of the phrase end to end, because to make these successful, they have to work end to end. We have to deliver the final outcome to the consumer, to the operator, to the different stakeholders. So we need to overcome each one of these. So if we look at how we created the data sharing infrastructure in the UK, 3 different concepts: preparation, trust, and sharing. So the first concept, preparation, the base infrastructure, the base technical infrastructure within each provider. A trust framework, that is not technical. That trust framework built in advance, putting the agreements and the standards in place well before any data actually gets shared, and then the actual real-time sharing mechanism when it's needed. And if we look at that in more detail, that data sharing mechanism, what you will see is the data moves from one party to another party, maybe different DNOs, maybe between generators and providers, maybe different parties in a network. The data never goes through any kind of central broker. It is not in a library. That data is moved from party A to party B, but the whole infrastructure facilitates the conversation and the trust network and the arrangements well in advance of any actual data sharing. And the roadmap is ongoing. So they've built a pilot based around outage planning, then looking at more strategic planning use cases, and then progressively scaling that and rolling it out. But what you will see is that it takes many, many years. So when it's easy to stand up and talk about the importance of this, actually overcoming this at an industry level and scaling it takes a long time. And we heard this morning, if you want to go far, go together. Okay, so taking the whole industry together will take you far, but it is by no means fast. And then full report is available. All of this is publicly available. That's the benefit. And in the last 42 seconds I have, just quickly talking about how this is relevant to Southeast Asia. Now, my colleagues and I took some data for Philippines for here. We literally just went online and took open data to Philippines and brought it into an AI model to take a look at what the opportunity would be of a data sharing infrastructure here in the Philippines. If you take some data about the grid infrastructure, if you take some data about substation and feeder activity and capacity, and then you take a look at some of the data and use some calculations around the dispatch and opportunity scoring, and then you apply some assumptions. And this is all maths. This is all maths. So these are assumptions, but very easily you can come up with the view that you can defer CapEx by using a data sharing infrastructure from anywhere between 8 billion to 10 billion pesos. And I think that's a significant number. I think the generators, the network operators, they know that these numbers are of this size. The challenge will be putting the infrastructure in to enable that to be the case. Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you, David. This was a great presentation, and the example of savings was just impressive. Well, we talk about critical infrastructure. We talk about all this wonderful data that can optimize. What can go wrong with gathering all this information and maybe not protecting it fully? So with that, I would like to invite you for the last session, presentation, Ken Gao, to talk about the importance of cybersecurity in critical infrastructure, specifically intersection of IT and OT. Welcome, Ken.
Okay, thank you. I will go on. So Jamila's did a great job giving you guys my background, so maybe I won't repeat that. But what I did want to point out is that I am not an academic. I am not a policymaker. I am a practitioner, client-facing consultant. I used to be an asset operator. I touch and use cybersecurity and AI every day. So yeah, I'm giving you my perspective. So my convoluted thesis for this presentation is the Red Queen versus game theory. And for those of you who don't know, the Red Queen is from Alice in Wonderland, and the Red Queen scenario implies a situation where you're running at full speed, but you're going nowhere. You're trying your best, maxed output, max effort, just to keep pace. And then game theory, made famous by Nash in that wonderful film, is a short version of that is your strategic decision making is based on a macro level perspective of market participants. Yeah. So whether you are an attacker and a defender in cyber, or you're an asset operator competing against your competitors in an open market, in either scenario, the pace of the treadmill is determined by how the market is behaving as separate individual actors. That is the reason why it's incredibly difficult to predict demand and how much effort you need to put in. Yeah? So what, if that is how things break down and that's how things apply, for us, we don't want to run like crazy. It's very difficult for us to figure out what that pace will be like tomorrow because nobody controls the pace in which AI and cyber will happen. It's dynamically driven. It's terribly difficult to figure this out. And when I think about this in my own journey, anecdotally, the thing that I never thought I would come across is the fact that the biggest gap or barrier, in my experience, has not been money or technology or anything else like that. It's actually governance, right? And so that's kind of maybe a head scratcher to some of y'all. I like to trick people into thinking I'm much smarter than I am by quoting dead Harvard professors. And in this case, here's a wonderful quote, right? The real problem with humanity is the following. We have Paleolithic emotions, medieval institutions, and godlike technology. So imagine a 3-lane highway where the first lane is going 5 kilometers an hour, and that is our Stone Age emotions as human beings. The middle lane is our governance that has never advanced past the medieval period. And then God-level technology, which is AI coming at you full force. We're not prepared for it. Now, one of the things that I found very surprising is when most organizations, governments, whatever, they try to implement AI, they come across a lot of problems, and I'm about to explain to you why. The issue is you're taking something that's moving at 5,000 kilometers per hour, and you're trying to shove it into a lane that's now running at 100 kilometers per hour, and you're encountering institutional friction. That friction is built into most organizations, and middle managers are highly skilled at navigating this, but the AI is not. So in order to actually get AI to work the way that you want it to, at the pace and the speed that you would ideally want it to be, you would have to create an organization and a system where the AI is based on data and knowledge and not based on human hierarchy. If, say, for example, you have a research workflow and the AI is great at generating a lot of research, but your work process requires a human to validate that, you're not going to see any improvement. And if there's any politics within that organization, the AI will not be able to overcome that. Okay? So governance, kind of suck at that. Why? Because our emotions are from a very long time ago. We struggle with getting our governance right, and the AI can't compensate for that. All right? Now, for those of you who don't know, the first thing on the left is Project Glasswing. This is Anthropic's codename project for Mythos. Anthropic is, in my opinion, maybe the best AI company out there. They implemented Mythos, and it was so effective, so powerful, that it just breaks through a lot of cybersecurity. Okay? Last month alone, they feared releasing it to the public because of the damage it might do, and so they restricted it to key vendors so they could internally harden their systems in the event that eventually it becomes available. And just within the last month, Palo Alto, which is on the right, they experienced 7 times or 700% increase in vulnerabilities within this period after getting a hold of Mythos. All right? That is the monumental impact and change. Now, wisely, Anthropic feared that game, that game theory effect, and withheld public release. And in this scenario, this is what stopped the Red Queen from flying off of that treadmill. Yeah. GPT 5.5, that's OpenAI's version. These are all the next-gen Blackwell trained AI models. They're all coming, all right? And if you look at maybe another anecdotal example, there's a cryptocurrency called Zcash. They didn't even get access to Mythos. They just used Opus 4.8, and they found a vulnerability for that cryptocurrency, crashed 30 to 50% just from the fact that these vulnerabilities exist. Yeah. So now that I've thoroughly scared you all, the good news is that I actually believe that cybersecurity is very easy and manageable. Here's a white paper for the 5 critical controls. This is how you go about prioritizing cyber. I don't have enough time to go over this. I have a session tomorrow at 2 o'clock on cyber. I can maybe cover this a little bit more there. So to be continued. Very quickly, with the remaining time that I have, this is what it might look like in terms of cybersecurity. I personally believe that AI is very similar to OT in the sense that neither of these things was designed for security. They were designed to be capable. And my parting thought to you is, if you're in an organization and you're using Slack or Teams, and you have that hooked up through an agentic system to SharePoint or something else like that, and you are discussing bonuses or who to hire via Slack or whatnot, yeah? And that is all AI agentic native. Guess what? AI, especially chatbots, much like OT, have a single channel. The user and the control channel is operating on the same plane, which means the moment that I have access to that prompt, I can prompt inject and get it to do things that you probably don't want me to, yeah? So this is the reason why I'm saying, just like OT, you must design AI systems with these considerations in mind. I wish I had more time. You could probably tell I could talk a lot, but that's me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ken. This was a very interesting presentation, very unconventional. So, but you did spur the interest, I think, in cybersecurity for sure. With that, I invite all my panelists to come to the stage. So you have to share the mics. Sorry. Thank you so much. This was very interesting. We went from what AI can do and to scaring all of us on using AI. So with that, maybe first question to Debbie. What lessons from your work on grid edge analytics and customer service forecasting do you think can be applied in ASEAN and Southeast Asia developing markets?
Thanks, Jamila. I had mentioned, there's some applications that are really advanced, right? SMUD's using high-frequency data to find signatures of electric vehicles, right? That's not where you're going to start if you're a developing country. And I'll note that if you're going to put in grid mod technology, you got to make the best use of it, right? In 2008, the United States had a big financial crisis. We invested huge amounts of money in AMI and smart meters, and today 80% of customers have smart meters, but we didn't use the smart meters for anything. The running joke was that the only thing utilities use the smart meters for was to cut off customers who weren't paying, right? So they had the tech and they didn't do anything useful with it. So it's not just the tech. I want to point out there are some utilities like Arizona Public Service. They have done great things with pretty simple technology. They have implemented time of use rates with their smart meters. That's a super easy way to basically put a giant battery on your system. At 7 p.m. when their peak period ends, people start to turn stuff on again. And they can't manage that big jump up in demand. So they use a DER program to help manage that big bump up and help them glide into the evening period. And if you don't have AMI, there are some places in the US and the Northeast that don't have AMI, there are other things you can do. Green Mountain Power, they use like Tesla Powerwall gateway communication and control instead of AMI to control behind the meter batteries. So there are other things you can do without, the huge amount of rollout of infrastructure.
Thank you. This is next question would be to Lam. Where do you see the opportunities for AI adoption in ASEAN region, but with limited data? So based on this limited data and some other limitations that may be specific to the region, how do you see the best way to adopt AI?
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think when it comes to data limitations, there are 3 layers, right? It's availability, accessibility, and then quality. So for availability, data kind of like varies a lot based on region and segments. For example, rural areas or legacy infrastructures maybe don't even have digitalizations to collect data. So I think firstly, we might have to invest into basically installing the basic digitalization infrastructure to collect the data and make it viable. And then secondly, when it comes to accessibility, our energy system are like highly fragmented and then often built and enhanced over many decades. So it's like a big puzzle with so many pieces. And data usually non-standardized and distributed among many companies and utilities. And then these organizations might be unwilling to share or unable to share the data due to, for example, confidentialities, regulatories, or competitive concern. And then finally, I think the biggest barrier would be quality. So data quality is characterized by accuracy, coverage, and then timeliness, right? And these are important for kind of reliable performance of AI. But to have these characteristic is very costly and kind of resource intensive. So a lot of AI model have to use kind of synthetic or simulated data, which can lead to unintentional AI failure. So I think firstly, we have to build invest to build the infrastructures to collect the data, because AI is all about data, right? And then we need regulatories and incentive to kind of incentivize share data ecosystem between data developer, utility generator, and people involved in this topic to make it accessibility.
Thank you. David, staying on the topic of data, are there specific technical governance or contractual mechanisms that you believe are most effective in building trust among stakeholders that are sharing their data and willing to collaborate with their colleagues?
I don't think there is a one size fits all. There's no magic, solution. I think what I will say and what I've seen is it's very situational dependent. There's a lot of commercial, cultural, and technical challenges. So to sharing data, most of it is not technical. If you have the data, then very often you want to protect it. It's commercially sensitive, and you're also worried about it being released into the public by accident. So, I mean, an example I had, not so long ago, trying to get underground utility information from utility providers. For them, that's almost like a commercial advantage that they have utilities in certain places in the streets and intersecting railway infrastructure or streets. So some providers would give it away quite happily. They would see the common good. Others, not so much, particularly the bigger players. And that would take a long, long time. And that's what we see in some of the choices of the use cases for data sharing in general, that it's very situational dependent because there are different attitudes to privacy, and there are different attitude and maturity of the data. So I think what you find is that it's very different in Singapore, or it's very different in Philippines, and not one in it is more. It's not even a question of a maturity or a scale. It's just that they're different, and I think each one needs to be dealt with, depending on the current circumstances in each place.
So it will take some time for developing, I guess, proper standards, policies, and protocols. Maybe.
Yeah, so everything you say is correct, but then it will be, but which ones and how much? So I can give you, for cybersecurity, there is ISO 27001, there is IEC 62443, there are no standards in all of the different industries, but they won't tell you exactly what to do. They will tell you the standard, and a lot of them will be processes. You still have to make a decision as an organization. What is your risk appetite? What is the national view on sharing data? If you go to Singapore, the citizens are very comfortable in sharing their data to the government. They trust the government a lot. Everyone has SingPass. If you go to Australia, nobody trusts the government in Australia. And many, many government initiatives have been stopped because of privacy concerns. Europe is very similar as well. So it takes a lot of time to go through that. And in fact, in many cases, the more open and transparent, the better, but it does take a long time. But it's not to say that you can't overcome those barriers, but the more you just treat privacy, for example, as another problem to solve, the more the citizens tend not to trust you. So each of these are situational dependent.
Yeah. No, and I think EU is changing its GDPR rules on privacy, so they're looking at relaxing a little bit. So yeah, Ken, you may answer the question of how to make it work when everybody is using AI without any standards, without any governance issues, policies. So what would be your advice to strike the right balance between technological advancements and evolving governance in the next few years, 2 to 3 years?
Oh, okay. So, well, okay. To be concise, you need to achieve three things. You have to have build out and account for the infrastructure that is required for the demand that's going to come, because it's going to be an avalanche. It's going to be exponential, right? The best people to look at for this is China. They're great at this. Yeah. The second thing you probably need to do is, is that you need to cultivate the culture and the talent. And the US is great at this. Silicon Valley, maybe now it's Austin, Texas. They're great at that. So I would look at them. And then maybe the third and maybe the most relevant to the audience is, well, okay, if I'm a smaller country without, that many resources at my disposal, how do I get to that point, right? And I would say Singapore is maybe the best example of that from their independence after the Second World War. They did a great job of kickstarting that. in region, they're probably the best example. There's other examples as well, but maybe in this region, that's probably the best. Yeah, you have to do those three things to prepare. And to solve the key governance issue is really, even David's question is it's trust. Trust is governance based, right? If you have an unselfish population, right? This is easy. If you have a selfish population, but they're intelligent, they should come to the realization that this is for the greater good. And I think that's what David's talking to, right? The worst scenario is if you have selfish people who are maybe not that intelligent, and now you have a challenge because you have to reach critical mass now, right? And that's why I say, look at those examples.
Thank you. Now, my question to Dr. Naidu. You're a believer in leapfrogging of new technology. So how, as somebody who thought about leapfrogging technologies, what would be your take on, from the scientific perspective? Oh.
Thank you. So it's an important question. So see, in the perspective of a specific region point of view, I think it's yes, and absolutely it's possible. We have certain advantages. The reason is that if you really see, our power systems are now evolving, and we are modernizing. We are adding more renewables, and moreover, we are building now a lot of digitalization capabilities. Unless, like for example, the matured markets or even matured countries where a lot of infrastructure is already built even decades ago, and retrofitting into that, it's very, very difficult task. So because the AI is always requires, standardized data sets are really, really important. So in that perspective, we have enormous opportunities. So no doubt about it. But the biggest barrier, what I can see today in this region is that, so it's not about the technology. It's basically so are we ready for the, the readiness of the data, and are we have a trust to exchange the, cross-border data exchange, because these are small regions. So that's very important. So that's very important. So in this perspective, 5 important steps we can able to take. Of course, the fellow speakers are already discussed. First of all, we need to be digitize the grid, but while doing that, we need to make a forum, like for example, because I am a substation automation engineer. So there is before substation automation, a lot of protocols, proper vendor specific protocols, and configure them and talking them is pretty difficult. But there is an IEC 61850 standard is introduced how to exchange each message, and every vendor has to be participated. So today we are evolving in the technology. The relays applications can be put in the one box, irrespective of the vendor. So then they talk each other. So similarly, we need to create the data across this region so that, something I can try and in Indonesia, I can apply directly into the Philippines or even for India. So that's very important. The second is that this workforce. So where we need to be combined the data scientists with the engineers, and again, at the end of the day, it need to be create trust to address the low-hanging fruits. I always believe otherwise, because I am doing this research. Even first, my application is that I did something, but I talked to the 6-7 customers. It's a black box. I don't want to take a risk, so it may lead to the blackout, and I will be in the. I may lose my job. Even I asked, okay, can you share some of the data so that I can try and I can prove you. So then he told that, okay, I can give it to you, but you may use and it's good. But any chance, let's say there is a blackout occurs, So I don't want to be in the news headline, because even though someone is hacked and someone is, uh, intentionally or non-intentionally done, but because I shared data with you, so I could be blamed. So that is the biggest hurdle I can see. That otherwise we have a fantastic opportunity, because we are building the infrastructure now so that we can design our systems more resilient, more data driven, and a lot of potential is possible in Asia Pacific region. That is an advantage of developing nation, I would see. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. These are very deep answers. Thank you for sharing them. And with that, we have only 5 minutes for 7 minutes for Q&A. If we have any questions in the audience, please come to the microphone and ask your questions. I guess everybody's tired. It's the end of the day. Please, Sujata.
Thank you for a very interesting set of presentations and discussions. What's the role of regulators in this whole system? Who regulates this? So, and I think that would be important. A number of panelists mentioned trust. So how does one, and this is maybe for all the panelists or whoever thinks that they would like to respond, the role of regulation. And thank you.
Thank you. If I can start with that, the regulators have a very important part to play, because we need to put incentives in place to drive behavior. And in many cases, the existing system is set up to favor the energy companies or to favor the providers, not to favor the consumers. And even just putting in data sharing agreements or putting in any kind of conditions, is most effective at a government level, during procurement processes, in advance of new agreements. The regulator has a very important part to play to ensure that policy can be implemented consistently, particularly when governments change. So I think they're an essential part of the puzzle, and I think they know it as well, because they're trying to navigate through all of these different tensions to come up with something which is workable, that does not favor one party over another.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that. Yeah, I think the regulator play a very big role, right? Is because our power system is kind of traditionally engineered as deterministic. So, and AI is kind of inherently probabilistic. So it's, for example, an operator say have our grid code define a limit for a frequency, and the operator know exactly if dispatching a turbo plan would violate the frequency limitations. But now with AI and variable renewable energies, is give you a suggestion with a confident bound. So for example, 95% of probability the solar plant can reach to maximum capacity. So, so if the operator is on way reliability and economic trade-off, right? How the grid code would define the right balance is the first place. And for example, if the operators decided to dispatch, and then this, a forced outage, that lead to another issue of accountabilities and liabilities. Who gonna be responsible for that? Is it the operators, the AI developer, or the utilities? So I think we really have to work all of that issues.
I'll go next. Yeah. I think there are really good examples of good government regulation. I've worked directly with the CSA in Singapore. They do a great job for industrial cyber. So again, they're a very good example of that. But I think maybe not every government is able to do that good of a job, right? So I think there is a limitation there. And I think the challenge, especially with AI, is that it's incredibly difficult to regulate. The pace and the complexity of whether it's OT cyber or it's AI, the pace is so great that even if you put somebody like me in charge, I would struggle, right? So in that regard, I think maybe the best example of regulation is you only take action when you have to, when the industry and the businesses don't have incentives. Then you're spurred to have to do something to raise that level. But maybe the ideal, and I'm hopeful here, is that the regulators can maybe perhaps create an environment closer to what happened in Silicon Valley, which is you had an environment where these founders could stay in that fast lane, going 5,000 kilometers an hour. They didn't have corporate governance that they had to listen to. If any of those founders took those ideas into a big Fortune 500, they would just get blocked. There would be too many naysayers. So the regulators have to play a very careful game of creating an environment where these people can try and fail and evolve and not get in their way, ideally.
We have only 1 minute left. Debbie, 30 seconds, if you can fit in, I will.
I was just going to say that I think there's a lot of fear because people take their experience with chatbots and then they generalize it. And I just wanted to say, Old pointed out some really good points that we've been using machine learning and neural nets for decades. All the load forecasting, solar forecasting, weather modeling that we do, we've been using this stuff for decades. We not only rely on this, I don't know anyone who's not using this stuff. Now, I would be concerned if someone dumped their whole interconnection queue into ChatGPT and asked to solve that for cost, but just don't do something stupid. We can use these techniques. I think we can be wise about how we do this.
Thank you. Thank you on this wisdom of 30 years, not 80 years of Debbie's experience. I would like to thank all our panelists for the insightful presentations. Thank you, Sujata, for your welcoming scene-setting remarks, and all of you for staying with us through this discussion. I wanted to note that we are having a cocktail in the Stuff Hub right after this. Please join us for cocktails at the Stuff Hub, and please join us tomorrow for other sessions that will be also discussing AI. Thank you.